and I'm gonna have to do some quick maneuvering over here as we go live and live to the world. We are on live, and we are real, and we are not imagined. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and soon on soundbroker.com, believe it or not.
Wow.
But the reality is that the people are absolutely embracing this. Our results, we've had over 50 people watch this on Facebook after last week's show. So, or it could be me clicking on it 50 times. I'm not 100% sure about that, but
Could be that, or it could be the police looking for somebody that they've been looking for a while.
yeah, it could be the Russians looking for me. No, I don't know why they'd be looking for me. I have nothing to do with anything. I'm like, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I tell you, I'm innocent. So anyway, welcome everybody to the 99th meeting of the Roundtable presented by SoundBroker, the place to go, the name to trust, and all that other good stuff. But just remember, everything you hear today is an opinion. So do your own research, and you'll be glad you did, because who knows what we're going to be talking about and how much information we really have. But one thing I will say, this group of people that are in this room and are participating, the knowledge base is off the hook. And I really appreciate everything that you guys add to this, because if it wasn't for you, it would be me as a talking head. And, I'm not a good talking head. That's all there is to it. But I do appreciate the opportunity.
You're a great talking head.
Oh, there you go.
Sometimes you're too much of a talking head.
Yes, to quote Winston Churchill, I'm a modest man and I have a lot to be modest about. That's it. So
I have a question.
You don't think a meeting over 95, Jan?
Yeah. Well, I want to welcome everybody into the room, especially Ken Newman. He's back, and although he's a little bit tardy in the next lines he's about to say, we still want to hear it from him because his voice, the tonal quality, everything. Let her rip, Ken. Let her rip.
Are we on the air, Jan? We're on the air.
We are on the air, and welcome everybody. So
Like
it's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting week, to say the least.
How interesting has it been?
Yeah, here in Thailand, I would say, we still get news. And when my girlfriend, who watches Thai news, she watches Thai news, and there was a story about this actress, a famous actress that was killed on a motorboat. Her nickname is Watermelon. I don't remember what her real name is, but that story lasted for about 6 weeks, and even she knows about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. So it's permeated everything, and of course, as we look at the world on what's going on, it's affecting every one of us, whether we think about it or not. But it is affecting us. But before we get into the stories of the day, I just want to say, if you knew a man by the name of John DeBoard, he owned a company called Compact Monitors. He was living out here in Thailand, and he passed this week. So I just want to say R.I.P. John. And I'm sorry about that. But the big news of people who have passed would be Gilbert Gottfried. And the reason I bring up Gilbert Gottfried is because for so many years, people thought that I looked just like Gilbert Gottfried. And if you go up to my Facebook page, you'll see a picture that we took back in circa 1990s of me and him together backstage at Universal, when Universal was still a thing. And it's, he was very nice to me, very funny guy. And, I got a lot of things because of him, because when I would go in places, people would think that I was Gilbert Gottfried, and they would say, "Oh, you're so funny." And I would say, "Well, thanks," because, I was doing stand-up comedy at the time. I never really took it for granted that they were talking about him until one day one day something happened where they said, "Oh, you're not Gilbert Gottfried?" And then I realized it wasn't my humor that they were saying.
So I saw the picture on Facebook of you and Gilbert, and I was shocked how tall Gilbert was. Or were you just sitting down?
That's exactly correct. What I was doing is I had my legs spread as far as I could possibly spread, so it looked like I was standing up straight. And so, no, I'm about a foot taller than he is.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's not that tall. But anyway.
I always thought that he was short, so that was like, what? The guy's like 6 foot at least.
Yeah. I mean, to go at, the interesting thing about Gilbert Gottfried is that we're not going to go into detail, but he's famous for two things, voicing the parrot in Aladdin and a 180 degree for his version of the Aristocrats. And if you haven't heard that joke, the Aristocrat joke by Gilbert Gottfried, it's all over the internet right now, but it is rated XXX, but it's amazing the dichotomy of Gilbert Gottfried between the family version of Aladdin and his true self in the Aristocrats. So I'm sure we've all heard that joke. Anyway, what else is going on before we go into the stories that I want to talk about? Does anybody have anything in the room they want to share?
I'm wondering if anybody is watching this HBO series Winning Time on the Lakers. Okay, that's not going to go very far because it's fantastic. It really
It's called
is.
Winning Time?
Yeah. It's about the Lakers when Jerry Buss took over. It's just it's phenomenal. I'm sure it's half fiction, but it's just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm sure Jerry Buss had the money, but I'm sure there were other people around him like Jerry West who put the team together at that point in time. If I remember correctly, Jerry West was the general manager, and I believe most of that work was Jerry West but his money. And boy, did he have a lot of money, that guy.
Well, if you watch the series, and if maybe this is part of the fake news of it, but he didn't really have a lot of money. He was conning everybody to make it fly.
Well, believe me, I was some of his parties, and it was pretty impressive, the parties that he had. But he hired me and a guy by the name of Don Grunow, because if you remember my history, I was doing the Los Angeles Street Scene Festival, and one of the things that part of my job was to get celebrities to make endorsements for the city, for groundbreaking and building openings and any kind of non-political event. And so we went in, I went from there into producing events that required celebrities. And Jerry Buss hired me to bring celebrities to the hockey game when he bought the Kings, because nobody was showing up to the King games. So he felt that there were celebrities there. And the biggest celebrity we brought, thanks to Don Grunow, I'll give him credit, was Muhammad Ali. And from then on, once he started coming to the games, we saw more and more celebrities start to come to the game. So it was really cool.
Awesome.
Anybody else have something? Ken Newman? I can't see what you're holding up. Your mic is muted.
Yeah, so I was just informed that this post is on Twitter for one of my bosses, that's Barry Manilow, that he tested positive for COVID today, and so he's not going to be able to attend the opening night of his musical in New York City, which is really bumming him out, and that's pretty weird. And
that is weird. Now, do you know for sure he's got COVID, or is it just the Twitter?
Well, that's what his post. That's what his post says. And when and by the way, we played last Thursday, Friday, or we were booked to play last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in Vegas, and we played Thursday and Friday, and then Saturday we did a quick sound check, and then about 15 minutes before our show was supposed to start, he canceled because he said he had no voice or something like that. So we canceled our Saturday night show, and I was like, wow, that was a drag. And we went home, and then we're scheduled to go back on Wednesday travel on the 20th, do a show on the 21st. I have to have my doubts whether we'll do that show on the 21st or not, now that it's the 13th and he's got COVID.
Wow. That is a bummer. One of the stories I was going to cover, and it's how old is Manilow right now? Does anybody know?
I think he's 78, I think.
Well, he's past his life expectancy. He's past his expiration date. The U.S. life expectancy falls again. We know the pandemic completely upended just about everything, and one of the biggest impacts it's had on the U.S. Life expectancy. It dropped 2 years from 2020, the largest since World War II. And now a new study finds it slipped again in 2021. And basically now the life expectancy is just 76 years old. So, if you're reaching that age, just remember, that's your expiration date. So be careful, live better, live higher, do exercise, eat well, do all that kind of stuff. And
do we trust the people that make those predictions or life expectancy?
I don't believe anything that I read anymore. Or
how old are you?
Well, I'm going to be 71 in May.
Okay.
But the thing is this. It's I've been watching Bill Maher, and it's an interesting thing, and I'm going to say that because one of the shows that he did was talking about how the media of both right and left misled the public into their belief system of what they wanted you to know. Like for something like I'll give you an example. Ivermectin. I thought I was under the complete impression that ivermectin was just a horse worming drug. That's all I thought it was good for. But in reality, it has been prescribed for other things. Not, it's
for
just
for a very long time too.
Yeah, but it didn't really have anything to do with COVID. They found out it was more of the steroids that was treating COVID than that drug. But the reality is that people were saying, hey, it's complete nonsense. But in reality, there was a basis for that nonsense of it, so it's like, that's
I don't agree. I don't agree. Just because it was taken by humans, which I had found out, that wasn't a mystery to me. I knew that it was being prescribed in a different size capsule or tablet than it was for animals. But it had nothing to do with COVID. It had no ramifications of fixing COVID at all. So that's what.
No, I agree with that, David. I agree with that completely. But
what he was saying was we were led to believe, or I was led to believe, David. I don't know if you were, but I was led to believe that it wasn't for human consumption at all.
Not at all.
Okay?
Exactly.
And that's an exaggeration.
Not
so you
true.
didn't hear that. Yeah.
I heard that right from the beginning.
They've been using it. They've been using it for stuff for a long time.
How could doctors prescribe it? How could doctors prescribe it for humans if it's not allowed to be used for humans? That makes sense.
That's exactly the point.
Exactly
That's
where
exactly
you're
the
wrong.
Point,
yeah, that's exactly where that's what the media made you believe, that it was never prescribed for humans, but it was, but not for COVID.
I don't agree. I heard right from the beginning that
who's going to look it up right now?
But not for that.
Well, so I guess it depends on what sources you listen to. David, you get pretty deep into the news.
David.
I just listen to the news casually.
There it is. Tina just put it up.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you, David, is this: is that yes, you might have known that it was prescribed for humans for other symptoms other than COVID, but I never knew that until I was listening to Bill Maher's show, and he was talking about how the media is spewing different events to their liking. So that's all I was saying. It wasn't that it was never prescribed for human. I did not know it from the media sources that I was reading. I never read that, this is, ivermectin is prescribed for, let's just say, influenza, or I'm just making this up right now. I don't know what it was prescribed for, but because I never did any more research than just listening to it. But that was one of the things that I had heard. So that's one of the reasons why I always start this show off by saying, do your own research.
So I have to tell you, coming from a horse owner for many years, and the times that we call veterinarians to come in and do things like operate on his foot when he stepped on a nail and it went in too far, and a number of other things. One time I said we had to put our horse on pills to because he stepped on a nail, right? So it wouldn't get infected. What's that stuff called?
Yeah, right. The thing.
The thing.
The thing that you get.
Yeah,
when you get rabies and stuff.
With a lot of knowledge here.
So I everybody gets on it at one point in their life or another. It's
tetanus. It's a tetanus shot.
Like that, right? But it's not. It's
shingles.
No, it's to avoid infections. What's that called?
Tetanus. Your tetanus shot.
Yeah,
iodine or something like iodine.
Antibiotics.
Antibiotics. Yes, antibiotics.
Thank you.
And so the doc came and he has
Thank
this,
you, Darth Vader. Thank you very much, Darth Vader.
he had this 2-gallon container of these horse that were literally horse pills. They were huge. And I said, so what's that? And he said, well, you're going to have to put them on 10 pills per day for the next couple of weeks. And I said, what is it? And he said, antibiotics. And I said, oh, horses have antibiotics. He goes, yeah. He says, to be honest with you, most of the medicines that horses take are the same ones for humans. They're just like way, way more concentrated and way more of them. So we had to crunch up all the pills in a powder form and mix it in with his pills. And he says, you could take this, you could take most of the things that they prescribe for horses. He says, you just have to take a shitload of it because you weigh 200 pounds and the horse weighs 2,000 pounds. So, two veterinarians, horse veterinarians told me that story too.
That's an interesting story. I never realized that horses will eat anything that you put in front of them, because I know that I've tried to, when I was younger and crazier.
Not anything, but yeah.
When I was younger and crazier, I crushed a Quaalude into this cat's food, and the cat ate because it was bothering me at night. Tico, you remember that, David? And the cat ate all the food and left the Quaalude, in the bottom, and didn't eat one bit of the Quaalude. I don't know how the cat did that, but anyway, David ended up adopting that cat.
Horses are pretty picky about everything, to be honest with you, but.
Oh, I noticed that there's ivermectin in my dog's what's that called? Worm, anti-worm medicine, or HeartGuard. It's called HeartGuard. It has ivermectin.
One of its uses is for that. It's for worms, deworming. Yes, one of its uses.
So let me just twist the story about seeing we were talking about COVID. It's just been reported that the world exceeds 500 million known virus cases. 35 manufacturers around the world have signed agreements to produce generic versions of the Pfizer's COVID pill and sell them inexpensively in 95 lower income countries that come together with that. Moderna, Pfizer, and its German partner BioNTech asked for emergency authorization for a second booster for those over 65. You can now get an additional Pfizer or a Moderna booster at no cost to you in the United States. Also here in Thailand, I'm going to get my 4th shot. The CDC now recommends an additional booster shot for certain individuals that are over 50. We'll throw those links in. And also good news, starting this week, you can get up to 8 over-the-counter COVID-19 tests per month for free from eligible participating healthcare pharmacies, but I believe that's just for Medicare patients. And also, the new study from the New England Journal of Medicine was published on March 30th that the COVID-19 vaccine reduced hospitalization by 68% in children ages 5 to 11 years old during the peak of the Omicron variant. So those are just interesting COVID-related bits of news that I picked up over the week for your listening enjoyment. Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
It's for Kurt. Are you on Stevens Pass or Snoqualmie Pass?
Call me. Coming down the west slope now.
Ah, okay. Coming from the east side of the state to the west.
Yeah, a little one-nighter over in Leavenworth.
Ah, nice. Leavenworth is very nice.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Leavenworth, isn't that where the prison is?
No,
No, Monroe.
no, it's actually a little Bavarian town in the Washington Cascades.
It's a logging town, and when all the logging stuff went away about 30, 40 years ago, they all got together and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive? And they agreed to turn it into a Bavarian-themed town. And it's all based on tourism and, Christmas and Oktoberfest and all that kind of everything in German. Huge light displays during the holidays. They come to the Nutcracker Museum and all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's your last stop for apple strudel on your way to Chelan.
Yes. By the way, after it just seems like Roger that, Kurt, the big fella. It sounds like you're on a trucker radio. There we are. Roger that, big fella. All right, we got you. Smokey Bear, next stop. Okay. Well, but speaking of shows, there are a ton of shows. NAMM just announced June 3rd to June 5th at the Anaheim Convention Center. Before I go into other shows, because there's so many other shows, how many people in this room are planning on going to NAMM this year? Nobody.
I'm hoping.
All right.
I'd like to.
I might go walk it, but we're not showing there.
Yeah, NAMM is NAMM. You know, before COVID was, you know, I went to the NAMM show. It was off the hook, man. It was crazy because basically all the manufacturers were showing. I don't think that's happening right now.
No, it's back to back with Infocom, so it's impossible to do both unless you're like some big budget company that can have two different trade show booths. But they're too close together.
Yep, I agree with you completely. Anyway, listen to the show. So you got Alice Cooper. Broadway is reopening. Paradise Square, Take Me Out, Beetlejuice, all open with a strange loop. Hangman starting previews. If you're not familiar with this guy, you really should Google some of his music. He's known as the Frank Sinatra of Brazil, and his name is Roberto Carlos, and he is gearing up for his first tour in 3 years, doing 12 dates in North America, starting in Florida, of course. And the guy just turned 81 years old. He's got a phenomenal voice. Love his music. His name is Roberto Carlos, and he's out on the road now. Boys Noise announced they're routing for a North American tour. Halsey is out there with the Love and Power tour. Pitbull announced he can't stop us now summer tour with Iggy Azalea and Sean Penn. They're doing 50 dates in North America. Ohana Music Festivals in Southern California, Dana Point Beach Festival, just set with Stevie Nicks, Pink, Eddie Vedder, Jack White. That's at the end of the summer, September 30th to October 2nd. Lord, Mitski, The Bleachers are among the artists return for a women-led All Things Must Go festival in Meriwether Post Pavilion. Not really sure where that is, but except other than it's in the Meriwether Post Pavilion. The Moon River Festival will return to Coolidge Park, Chattanooga, Tennessee on September 10th and 11th. Leon Bridges and the National are headlining that. And the shows are just going on and on and on. I just got an email from the concert line from Live Nation. Rain, a tribute to Beatle. Bad Bunny's is doing a tour. Lady Gaga, Jackson Brown, Santana, Earth, Wind and Fire, Norah Jones, Zombies, Goo Goo Dolls. Randy Rainbow is out there doing a tour at the Wilshire Ebell Theater, which is kind of cool. If you haven't seen him, he's like a YouTube star. Josh Groban is performing 5 Seconds of Summer, Alice in Chains. I mean, the list is going on and on and on about how many shows are out there. I mentioned Pitbull, Chris Stapleton, the Lumineers, Miranda Lambert, and Keith Urban, Andrea Bocelli, Rob Zombie, Gloria Trevi, Aerosmith, so Def Leppard, Motley Crue. So the shows that are going on and on, there are a lot of shows, and that's why there's no gear. Is anybody finding that challenge?
I've heard it's really challenging to find gear. Like we're doing some dates in August, and I was talking to Jim from OSA, and he said he's having a hard time finding the speaker system that we want to use, which is not something he stocks, which is we'll probably end up using what he stocks instead because he's just not finding any DMB available.
Yeah, I'm getting calls from everyone, and I mean when I say everyone, I've gotten a call from Solartech, I've gotten a call from Claire Brothers looking for gear. They just can't find enough gear, and where we're finding our gear is people who have had enough of the business and basically want to retire. That's really the gear that we're finding right now and it's selling, and it's selling. I'll give you an example. We sold an SD21 and S21 Digico console. And the only reason the guy bought it because it had a Dante card. He needed the Dante card for a show. And so we paid top dollar for the S21 just so he could get the Dante card.
Well,
wow.
Jan,
and we're talking like $25,000 or something, right?
Nah.
How much is that?
Oh, it's close. It's just under 10. It's just
under 10. Oh, no kidding.
They used to be 8,500.
It's still a lot of money for a Dante card.
Right, for sure.
It's
But
like
you also get the S21.
Well, of course, but I mean, Dante's not shipping anything.
Well, here's the whole thing. If you think you have trouble getting gear, you ought to try getting people.
No kidding.
No kidding. Right now, I can tell you, I haven't had a day. The reason you haven't seen me around here for a while is I've been working. I've been working more than I want to work, being very close to 65. And I can tell you that it's a handful of new people coming in, and the old people that did not leave 2 years ago and just take retirement or go do something else for a living. But the work is now being done by 3/4 or fewer of the people who used to be there in sheer numbers. Having short calls on an arena show is absolutely common. Who was it? WWE wanted about 180 people for a loadout. They got 140, and they were kind of had an attitude about it. And I kind of looked at them and said, you ought to be grateful you didn't get 70 people, because that's where this call was a week and a half ago. And so that's just getting local hands. I'm not talking about getting skilled label and touring personnel, because that's hard too, because it's also, there's a bidding war for people with reasonable levels of quality and availability.
Decent freelancer prices have gone up at least 30%. I'm hearing that from all my people. I've been amazed at what people are getting, you know.
Whoa, what about you? Have you been able to raise your rate?
I did a little bit, but I got to be really honest with you. Most of my work is with clients that I've been with since the 90s. And I went up a little bit, but I'm not going to take advantage of it. I'm just glad to be working.
Because, I mean, the cost of living has definitely increased. Just getting from point A to point B if you have a gas-powered vehicle, you know?
Yes, and I agree. But here's one of the things that I'm starting to realize, because, you know, like you, I mean, I've been traveling a lot lately. I haven't been here in 3 weeks, right? So what I'm finding is, if you think you're going out to eat on government per diem, you're dreaming. Because you know what, you and I don't stay in, you know, we stay in Ritz-Carltons and Marriott's and these big resorts and stuff like that. And $61 a day doesn't cut it. You're lucky if you can
do one meal.
Right.
Yeah.
We were outside of Dallas in a little hotel for the weekend doing a show. Just got back Sunday night. And you know what? Breakfast was $35, and there was nothing special about it.
You gotta start eating at fast food places, Bruce.
No. Well, half the problem is we didn't have a car. You know, we took a cab to the hotel, and it was I don't even remember what it was. It was a no-name Renaissance, but it was an old one, you know. And we did a award show in the ballroom, and we were there 3 days between start to finish. And you know, the restaurant was only open part-time. You know, it was brutal. And you know what? Government per diem is a joke.
Restaurant food has just gone through the roof.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I mean, Annie and I have been going out to dinner the last few nights, because since I've been home, I've been going with her on her court cases and stuff. And I'll tell you, we're not walking out of there at not even super nice places for under $50. It's ridiculous for the two of us. There's no such thing as $25 a meal anymore. And have you had an Egg McMuffin, a coffee, and a potato at McDonald's? It's $13. Since
and
what
the coronary.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, come on, you know, that's just ridiculous, you know. So, you know, I'm going to be addressing this per diem thing really soon, because you know what, it's getting really stupid. Because I'm going backwards, you know, in money, because we're not pulling enough in.
Well, when you say you're going to be addressing it, what do you mean? Do you think you'll be able to raise your number to the companies you work for?
Well, the what I've been doing is I basically charge 75 across the board, and I don't do half days for travel days anymore, you know. But I'd love to see it go up from there, because 75 doesn't even cut it. But you know, I don't let people pay me. Well, I'm a contractor, so you know the government rule doesn't even you know it just doesn't matter. You could theoretically charge whatever you want.
Charge whatever you want, yeah.
Right.
But the point is,
you can rule are you
charge.
Talking about, by the way, what government rule are you talking about?
Okay, so if you look, there's an app where you can look up every city, and it has a per diem rate that's approved by the IRS or
right. So basically, what it is, if you're a W-2 employee, is how it basically works, and you have to go online. Your company has to go online to see what never used to be this way up until about 92 or something. The government has a set rate for every city for per diem and lodging. And the per diem number is anywhere between 45 and 61, right? Or maybe it might be 65 now, but generally, right? So theoretically, if the company pays you a per diem check, you are not taxed for that per diem, unless, here's what they don't understand, unless it's over the government rate. Now, if you're a W-2 employee and they pay and the rate is 60 and they give you 75, then you have to come up with receipts. Well, nobody wants to deal with that. There you go. So, but as a contractor, a few years ago, handful of years ago, I had one of my clients call me and say, "Oh, we want to take you to the Hilton Hawaiian Village in on the Big Island on Kona for 2 weeks." And I said, "Okay, I'll go, but it's 125 a day per diem." And they're like, "What?" And I says, "Look where the Hilton Hawaiian Village is. It's all by itself, 30 miles away from anything. And there's 4 restaurants at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, and you're not going to eat anything for under $50. And they called me back and they said, "Oh my God, you're right." And I got 125 a day.
Well, that's really good. I mean,
that's very contrary to what music tours are doing, though. Music tours are, I bet, still paying $25 a day if you're lucky. I mean, for the low budget ones.
Gary was out on 3 tours this past 6 months, and
those are higher budget tours that Gary would be on. But go ahead.
Yeah, and they were like 35, but they were feeding them most days.
Well, how are they feeding people these days on the road? How are they doing?
You know what? I actually. Yeah,
well,
catering
right?
is back, full on buffet style. Yeah. I did a gig at the Beverly Hilton a couple of weeks ago, and it was full on. I was like, this is like the old days. This is beautiful. It's like you just grab what you want to eat and put it on your plate and so forth,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Philadelphia just announced that they're going to close the mask loophole, and they're making people wear masks again. Do you think that's going to affect the buffet style lunches that people are used to getting?
Do you think people will really, comply with that law? I don't know.
Just say no.
People are over it, man. People are fucking over it.
Yeah, I think.
Pardon my French. I'm sorry, Jan.
I think the government's going to try and do a bunch of things to us in the near future. But the thing is anybody going to go for it? Because I'm, my opinion is I'm done with this.
Here's my feeling. I wonder if you agree with this, Bruce. Is that they're doing all these rules and regulations as generalizations, and generalizations generally, or for the most part, work. But wait, hear me out. And my belief is this. My belief is that there are enough treatments, there are enough vaccines, and there's enough proof that I personally am not going to get real sick if I get this virus. And it's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. So I'm not too worried about it. So I'm not interested in the inconvenience of a mask. That's my belief.
Right. And every version of this virus has gotten weaker and weaker and weaker. And there's a bunch of things you can do now. Basically, everybody in my family's had it. Most of the people around me have had it, and I'm not even remotely worried about it. I get on planes. I've been on so many planes in the last month and a half, and worked and done so many dinner shows. And I got news for you, man. You go to Texas and Florida and Arizona. Nobody's doing anything, and nobody's getting sick. So there is a certain population that's going to get sick, but it's to the point now where it's a control issue, man, and I'm not buying it.
I think it's less of a control issue than the conspiracy theorists will make it out to be. But it's definitely a generalization. I think it's a generalization.
Yeah. So
yeah,
and unfortunately, that generalization does not apply to, in my opinion, the majority of people, and that's the problem right there.
And here's the funny thing, though, as you travel around, I went and got some blood work done this morning, and the first thing I went into Quest, and it's on the 6th floor, some building in Sherman Oaks, right? And I get in there, and I said, "So, did you guys close down for the COVID thing?" And she said, "For 2 weeks." And I said, "Really? The first 2 weeks, 2020 of March, right?" She said, "Yeah." And I says, "Well, what about the rest of the time?" And she says, "Well, they told us we had to do this, or we had to do that, we had to do this." We kept seeing people, and we weren't supposed to see people with COVID, but everybody came in, and we wore a mask, we wore a shield, and we were doing blood, pulling blood, and we were doing all of our things. And a couple of us got sick, and a couple of us didn't. And but what that tells me as I travel around and talk to people is they wanted to put all these rules on us and have us wear masks and don't go out and don't talk to people and stop hugging people and all this craziness. I got news for you. people did it anyway, man. Maybe when you're walking down the street or you're going in some restaurants or something, everybody's all anal about their masks and stuff. But generally, stuff kept going on, and people weren't following you walk around and see how many people didn't have their masks over their noses. Right.
I mean, the theory. See, so Bruce, the theory, as I understand it, I may be wrong, but this may be an opinion. But as I understand it, the theory behind masks is that if everyone wore a mask every time they were anywhere but their own home, then the virus would go away. But the problem with that theory is that ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry,
No.
this is America, and
It's
there's
not
no
gonna-
way everybody
everybody's gonna wear
everywhere
that. No.
is wearing them. Right. So therefore, boom,
And you-
throw that thing out.
Right.
Throw
And you know
that
what?
theory.
The M95 mask is the only mask that actually comes close to doing any protection at all. And that's not even guaranteed because most people don't even put them on right. You know? I mean,
I don't know, but the bottom line is a lot of people have died from some kind of virus the last.
Oh, sure
couple
it
of
has.
years.
Sure. Yes.
You know, a lot more deaths than usual.
Sure.
And if you talk to their relatives or people that know them, it's
They're
pretty
very
devastating,
upset.
and it's
It is very
related to this COVID virus.
Sure.
And so, therefore, it's what are you supposed to do? Nothing. You can't do nothing. So the government has to do something, right? Because they can't just stand by and let millions of people die.
Right.
So they got to do something. So they work on generalizations, and that's where we are.
Exactly.
Well, a lot of times the COVID deaths are that COVID is present or maybe not.
A lot
be
of
the
them,
reason
COVID
why
didn't
they
even kill them.
died. But the reason why they use the COVID death is because the government gives the hospital some
Oh,
money.
they get paid a fortune for it. Yes.
That's all been debunked. But
No,
the
it
whole-
hasn't.
Yeah.
No, it
Well,
hasn't.
isn't that basically true that if they die from COVID, there's a certain payment involved in it? If they die from natural causes, there's no payment. Isn't that true?
I believe that is, but that's why we have to do our own research, and
Right.
that's why everything you hear here is an opinion. That's the way I said that, because
apparently
you never know what's
Tim
right
thinks
and
that's
what's-
not. Apparently, Tim thinks that's not true, though. Is that right?
Oh, the people I know that work in medicine and hospital administration personally tell me that is not the case. Now, you may have something you've read somewhere else, and I only have anecdotal evidence. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. That's an opinion, eh? But I will say this: when I saw my doctor yesterday, he was wearing a mask.
My doctor did too, and I got a new doctor. And one of the things I said is, you're interviewing me, and I'm interviewing you. And here's my big question: if I get COVID tomorrow, what are you going to do about it? And I said, you got to give me the right answer, or I'm not going to come back and see you. And 2 doctors gave me the wrong answer, and this doctor gave me the right answer. And he was wearing a mask, and I said, so why are you wearing a mask? And he says, because I see so many people, and I just see them for a couple of seconds. And he said, and a lot of it is because it makes people feel better. But when I'm in the hospital,
I feel a lot better when my doctor washes his hands too, and puts on gloves before administering, whatever he's going to do.
And he says he's at the hospital dealing with COVID patients all day long, and he said, and he hasn't gotten sick yet. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Well,
So-
and he's lucky. The
had very
son
good-
of my boss is a pharmacist that works in a hospital, and he actually wound up getting hospitalized with COVID.
Well, yes, and everybody
so-
knows somebody, and I hear you. I totally hear
That's
you.
why I'm saying it's all anecdotal at this point.
Sure.
We all know the exception to whatever statement is being made, and that's why we could spend a lot of time on COVID here and accomplish nothing before we have to say goodbye to Jed and all his kin.
I just have a question. Why are you so teeny on my screen? You look like Darth Vader, and you're the
Well,
size
he's
of
Darth Vader, and that's his icon. That's his.
Oh, okay,
his
man.
graphic.
Well, what he said
And-
was he hasn't been seen in a while, and he wants to keep it that way.
That's
Yeah.
well,
what it-
there's
So-
I have standards to live down to.
So
Yeah,
one
right.
thing I'm getting the impression is true, and again, I'm getting the impression it's true, so it's probably an opinion about this whole COVID thing, is that it as a virus, the germ, treats every human differently, and some humans are drastically affected by it, and some are hardly affected by it, and that seems to be true. Would you all agree?
Yes, and people that have comorbidities are going to get hit the hardest too. If you have diabetes or way overweight and all this kind of stuff. But, and I've known a couple of people that know people that have died, my brothers and a number of people, but I've also known shitloads of people that have gotten it, and it's been like a head cold, including my wife and my kids, who I was here every moment that they were here. And,
And
I'm-
wait, and you didn't get it yet? Have you had it?
nope.
That's crazy. Okay, that right there. That just tell people about that. My gardener said the same thing. He said everybody around me got it. My whole family, this and that, and the other thing. I just didn't get it. And same thing happened to my son. He was working a gig with like 12 other guys for CES. Like 6 of the other 12 people got it and tested positive during the gig, and then he didn't get it. I said, how'd you manage that? How'd you manage not to get it? He said, I don't know, blood type, what? He's joking, but there's what causes it to even infect you versus somebody else. That's the
My,
first
son- my
premise.
son's my son's whole platoon got it. And they stuck him in a Quonset hut for 2 weeks, and everybody read books and goofed around. And when it was over, and they went back to work. So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there
nobody
you go.
knows for sure. But what they do know now, and the reason why this new variant is so contagious, is that you will have it 2 to 3 days when you're contagious before any symptoms come out. If any symptoms come out at all.
That's one of the things. The whole thing of getting tested when you get sick is kind of a joke, because when you get sick, you're past your gestation period. So the 3 days before you get sick is when you're spreading.
When you say, and by get sick, you mean show symptoms.
When you
right?
show symptoms, yes.
Yeah, right. How
Yeah,
interesting.
let me give you a little
sure of that?
anecdotal.
You sure of that?
Oh yeah.
Let me give you a little anecdotal
because
story.
in Barry Manilow's case, I texted him. I said, so I started to hear that you tested positive. He said, yeah, I've been feeling lousy all week since I left him on Saturday. So that means the last few days he's been feeling lousy, but he tested positive, and he was tested every day, but he tested positive today. So that's kind of contrary to what you were just saying, but I don't know where it's going to go from here.
Horrible
Is
to
he gonna
be
get more
tested every day. I mean,
I know.
I dread
Why?
that stucking up my nose thing.
we did it. I did a
good.
2-week long corporate thing in January, and we got tested at least once a day. Sometimes we got tested twice. But that was just standard procedure. If you want to get in the building, you got to get tested, and you got to test negative.
Well, I got to tell you, in the beginning, when they shoved that thing all the way back and tickled your brain, that was brutal. But I had never gotten one of
Isn't that
those.
interesting? Isn't that interesting how that changed over time too? Rich?
Oh yeah, and I did a corporate, and we were checked every other day. In fact, even the Milken, they said 20 every 36 hours or something. So since I was there a long time, I got checked 3 times in my stay, and most everybody else got checked once or twice. And it was just do the phone amp and talk to some lady on the phone and follow the directions.
Barely touching your nose. I mean, they
stick
barely
the thing
touch your
in
nose
there,
compared to the old days.
And then, I'm negative. Okay, whatever. And both when my wife was sick and everything, I mean, I was testing right along with her, and so because I wanted to make sure. But
That's great.
The whole 2 years of COVID, I've had a couple of head colds, so who the hell really knows? I might have had it. I don't know. But the only time I ever tested when my wife was sick, and my handful of corporate shows where they were all anal about it and were tested. So
I thought it was. Isn't that interesting? How about this, Bruce? I think you'll agree with this, that the consistency of the manner in which they test, or the frequency of the testing for those corporate shows, is so inconsistent. Like when we did the Oscars was, if you've been lab tested, you're good for 7 days.
Yeah.
So then you don't, that's crazy, first of all,
Yeah.
that you're good for 7 days being lab tested. And so some guys were like, well, I'm here for 6 days, and so you don't have to be tested on site at all. So other people were like, okay, I got past my 7th day. Now I need a rapid test, and that was the other thing. One guy had to be lab tested for some reason on his 7th day or something, and they weren't going to get the results till Monday. But he was, Sunday was his last day of work. It was like so stupid. It was just like almost stupid. So the consistency or the logic level of the testing seems to be pretty low.
So Kenny, I don't know if you've been finding this out, but my last 4-5 shows, right? We either have to be, of course, vaccinated or checked within 24 hours. Which is kind of goofy because people that are getting vaccinated are getting it too. So that's kind of goofy. But what I've been finding is the last 5 shows that I did out of the state of California, not that matters, but just to keep that real, right? No one, once we got on site, in fact, all they said in the paperwork is you have to be tested within 24 hours of load in or be vaccinated, and nobody has checked anything. They're not checking. You don't have to show them on your phone or bring your little card. Nobody's checking. So
every company that I worked for asked for my a scan or a picture of my,
which was funny because
card.
2 of the shows that I did were healthcare companies.
Oh, that's great. Well, so did you get your second booster?
No. Well,
Yeah,
back a year ago, I got the first and the second Moderna, but I'm done with it. I'm not doing anymore.
No, you didn't do a booster at all, and no second booster either. Then,
Nope.
because
because I'm just not.
Freedom, because I'm goddamn
You know
freedom,
what?
because I'm free, man.
Because you know what? We can have this conversation another day, but you're not going to agree with most of the things I have to say. So we're not going to have this conversation right now.
Okay, that's
A
fine.
little anecdotal information here. First of all, science is constantly evolving.
It
They
is.
don't really know, and they're always
And they
learning.
know a lot more now than they did a year ago, too.
Right. You know, but one thing that I will tell you that Stephen Hawkins has predicted the end of the world. Of course, for him, it's already over. But basically, he thinks that the end of the world is going to come from nanorobots. Whereas, you know, at one point, bioengineering was the number one profession people were getting into, and generic engineering. And he thinks, and now they have this new nano robot that they could put into your system to cure diseases, but it could replicate itself. And Stephen Hawkins basically said that that's going to be the end of the world. He feels that the nanorobots are what's going to kill us.
And that's what is going to get into our bodies when they vaccinate us, right?
Well, no, I don't know if they're using nano. I think it's more for, you know, heavy duty kind of cancer stuff like that is what they're working with that.
Okay.
On, you know.
So sorry, Bruce, but sorry to rub you know, like touch on a touchy subject. But so doesn't that keep you from getting some gigs if you're only vaccinated and not boosted?
Not yet.
Good. Okay. Good for you.
Hey, I want to say about a study, and speaking of Bruce and Kenny, intelligent people became less happy during the pandemic, but the opposite was true for unintelligent people. It's published in the Journal of Personality. The researchers found that more intelligent individuals generally tended to be more satisfied with life throughout adulthood compared to less intelligent individuals. However, the trend changed in 2020 when those with a childhood IQ of above 90 became less satisfied with their lives, while those with a childhood IQ of below 90 became more satisfied. The first analyzed data was from 5,178 individuals who were part of the National Child Development Study, an ongoing longitudinal study that has tracked British respondents since birth in 1958. And the next, they examined 4,223 individuals who were part of the British cohort study, another ongoing longitudinal study that tracked respondents since their birth in 1970. It's a big article, and we'll post but basically, you know, stupid people are happier now, and intelligent people are not as happy. So let's go through the room. Who's happy?
I'm happy, but I'm mystified. I had no idea there was a Journal of Personality.
Yeah.
Who reads the Journal of Personality? What restroom do you find this journal?
Psychologists or psychiatrists or something? That's crazy, right?
Come
What
on.
restroom?
Yeah, because
true.
only an
People
idiot would be
magazine and the
happy.
Journal of
Personality.
Personality. Oh, let's see.
Yeah, I think only an idiot would be
It's
happy right now.
maybe, you know what? Could it be that it's a made up thing? It doesn't even exist?
Ooh.
Isn't it kind of like, what are we talking about? I'm very satisfied and happy with my life, but I think politics is horrible, that this country is getting fucked over. So I'm not happy. So, you know, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy. I'm just very disgusted.
Okay.
I think that sentiment is common amongst lots and lots and lots of Americans, Bruce.
Yeah. Oh, I have no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, basically, inflation has surged to 8.5%, the highest in over 40 years. That's the highest annual rate of inflation since December of
Effing
1981. Food, fuel,
FJB.
shelter costs were the key drivers of upward rise in overall prices. Gasoline price jumped 18.3% from February to March in certain areas, right? It says CBS did a news poll. It says 2/3 of Americans have been forced to cut back due to inflation. A new poll found that inflation has impacted a majority of Americans, forcing them to cut back on their expenses. While Americans think that the job market is okay, the jobs have increased over the last year, but they do not think the economy is going well. The poll from CBS found that 56% of Americans rate the local job market as good, while 63% rate the national economy as bad. Inflation has been the leading factor on this. And throughout the last year, the country has seen the highest rates in inflation in over 4 decades. So, I mean, at the same time, 26% of Americans said higher prices were only an inconvenience, while 8% reported not seeing any effect, according to the poll. And
It's kind of like the perfect storm. You know, first we had the COVID, nobody did anything, nobody bought anything, nobody spent any money. Then all of a sudden, you know, vaccines and everything. So now they're spending and looking and trying to use like crazy.
This
But the
actually was,
backlog is there, so
yeah.
nobody can get anything.
this was
Nobody's
predicted.
working anymore. The labor market, you can't get, the tourists can't get bus drivers and truck drivers. And I mean, it's just a perfect storm and then you got this, the Russians stopping oil. So
Right.
everything is hitting at once. And
it's
you can't
interesting,
put any
David,
one
that you
price.
should mention that, because the ABC News poll, Ipsos, found that 71% of Americans said a great deal or a good amount of the fault behind the rising gas prices is from Putin, while 68% point at the oil companies. And Biden released 1 million gallons, 100 million gallons of gas from the strategic reserve.
He just eliminated ethanol, or he made it only ethanol in the gas, so they don't have to do those additives that cost more money.
You know, it's an
which
interesting thing.
I don't know. I don't know about you, what you heard about that, but I heard, where was it? I think it was on Stephen Colbert, that is going to affect the gas price 10 cents per gallon. And you know what I say about that? Wow, that's not much.
Well, yeah, because the reality is it's the reserve. It's not actual gasoline. It's oil reserve. So they still have to put it into the pipeline to transform it into gasoline, plastics, and whatever else they're working with it. So it's going to take a little while for that to happen. You know, from that standpoint of view. You know,
The other thing that they do is they keep comparing everything to last year instead of 2 years ago when it really was normal. So yeah, of course, gasoline was cheap last year. Nobody was using it. But go 2 years ago, and it was much closer to what it is now.
Yeah.
Hey, Ken, isn't your commute from the 24th floor to the event level in an elevator?
Well, once I get to Vegas, but I have to drive 300 miles to get to Vegas, 300 miles to get home. So,
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up. 300 miles. Okay, so guess right now there are guys that are working on right now at this very, very second. It's a company that they're making a space plane that could get you anywhere on Earth in 1 hour. 1 hour. So just think, from Los Angeles to Vegas, that would be like 30 seconds. You know, you can get there. I wonder if your bags would make it on time as well. But anyway, I'll throw that link. Tino, throw the link in there.
I am so impressed at how fast you could change from one thing to the next.
No, the funny thing is that because they can't get into hyperspace to go to Vegas, it'll probably take longer to get to Vegas than it will to New York.
Yeah, probably so. And do you know this? Here's a fact that I didn't even realize this, and I don't understand it completely. But I will say, no matter where you're standing on Earth, you can only see one face of the moon. You can't see the whole moon. You can never see the dark side of the moon. How is that possible?
It
Because we're rotating, they're rotating.
doesn't rotate. It always
Of course,
faces.
it rotates.
Well, it doesn't rotate on its axis. It rotates around the Earth.
So you say the moon is not spinning?
Is that so? The moon is not spinning?
I don't believe that for a second.
I think it has to.
I think
Yeah.
it spins to a certain extent because there is gravity on the moon. It's just very little.
There it is. Yeah.
conspiracy theory. Conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, but that's it. You can only see one side of the moon ever. We've never seen, we've never
Maybe
seen
it's
the
just-
other side of the moon.
It's one of those weird timing
Listen,
things
if
that
my
just
hand
happen.
faces my face and I move my hand around this way, my hand isn't rotating. It's still the same place on my wrist that it always is. It's just moving around me. The moon doesn't rotate on its axis. It's in still space.
Okay, hang on. I gotta Google that.
Nope. Meanwhile, while we're doing that, NASA's asteroid orbiting Psyche, you've been psyched. The spacecraft is set to blast off into space from Cape Canaveral in August on its journey. There's this asteroid out there that's made out of metal. I don't know how they figure all this stuff out, but it's going to go past Mars to get to this asteroid, and it's going to join the asteroid between Mars and Jupiter. And the scientists think that, listen to this, it's about 173 miles at its widest point and could be packed of precious metals worth over $10 quadrillion. You know, quadrillion dollars. That sounds like the U.S. budget. That's how much debt we're going to be in soon. But,
so back to the moon. The moon does rotate on its axis, but it takes exactly or thereabout the same amount of time as a rotation around the Earth. So that's why you only see one side of the moon ever.
So what are the odds that it's not even a fraction of a degree faster or slower than the Earth? I don't get that.
Well, I don't understand mosquitoes either. I don't understand what the purpose of mosquitoes are. I mean, really, to remind us we're part of the food chain? There's a lot of things I don't understand, but it's amazing.
Here's a good one for you. For the third time in history, but the first time that it affects us, something from outside our galaxy has struck Earth. It hit in January. They know of two other things that have passed through our galaxy, but nothing has ever hit the Earth before. The odds are unbelievable, and they can tell it came from outside the galaxy because the speed was 180,000 miles an hour.
That's the speed of light, right? 186,000.
No, so nothing that fast would come from inside our galaxy. It has to come from outside the galaxy. And it pulverized, so whatever it is spread all over the Pacific Ocean. But they would love to try and find pieces of it because they've never had anything from outside our galaxy before.
Yeah. Well, they just discovered a space laser, the mega laser, by the Meerkat telescope. That's a gigantic galactic space laser is coming to a theater near you. Basically, scientists have detected that. It's impressive what's going on with science these days, especially with NASA. I mean, they're mind blowing what they're doing. And meanwhile, people are still running out of gas on the California roadways more than ever before, CBS is reporting. So go figure.
Well, I got to leave. I'm in the middle of a project, and I just came here to make a couple of Ethernet cables while I was listening to everybody.
Hey, David, what are you doing on April 30th? Are you busy April 30th?
Let me look. I think that's isn't that the
Saturday.
Isn't that Milken?
Oh, is it during Milken? Yeah, it probably is. Are you doing Milken?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
April 3rd. Wait, let me look.
It is, yeah, right in the middle of Milken.
No, April 30th.
April 30th, Country Nation is playing Mavericks in Santa Ynez.
That's the first
day.
There
you go.
Yeah, that's the first day of Milken.
Oh, so you're working. Okay, never mind.
Oh, well, thanks for thinking of me.
Well, before you go, I just want to point out one more story, which has nothing to do with you whatsoever. But while you're in the room, I still think I thought Walmart is pulling cigarettes from sales in a lot of their stores now. They're not going to sell cigarettes anymore.
They're copying CVS?
I guess so, And another news thing about sales is sound productions Sound Production, they're a distributor of sound gear. They're offering instant rebates from AKG and JBL Harman right now on certain things. So there must be some things that are actually in stock that they're selling.
Well, on that note, I'll say goodbye.
Yes.
See ya.
Bye, David.
Bye, David. Have a good one.
Yeah, David.
And I guess, unfortunately for them, Putin's daughters will not be able to buy any of that because we have sanctioned them. Putin's daughter has been sanctioned. They won't be able to have any money now. So that's another story that's out there. Anyway, anybody have anything else they want to say before we say
Do we
goodbye to
really
people
think
on
any
the-
of those sanctions are working towards stopping Putin from invading Ukraine?
No, I don't believe they are. However, what I do believe that is going to stop them is the weapons that the West is now pouring into Ukraine. I think that that is what's going to stop. As long as they keep giving them the weapons that they could use to stop their tanks. It's a serious thing what's going on over there, but it's basically a fight against democracy. And I was listening to a very interesting repartee between this guy named Joe Scarborough and Ian Bremmer, and on the difference of what's happening over there in regards to what's the most important thing regarding. And, basically the number one thing that Ian Bremmer says is make sure that they've got enough weapons. That's the most important thing, is if we're going to prevent Russia from taking over Ukraine, is then the West has got to give them some weapons. And it seems that the West is really stepping up. NATO is really stepping up to help these people out, because they're all afraid that it's going to come to a theater near them if they don't.
Just as
So-
we've been online here, I saw a news flash that there was another 800 million that Biden promised today.
Yeah, but that's already been that money has already been spent. In other words, we have that stuff in our possession that we're going to give away. But the one thing that they're going to get is, which is really cool, they're giving them Russian tanks and Russian planes that they've captured in previous wars that the Ukrainians are going to use against them. But it seems the most effective thing that they have right now are the drones. The drones seem to be this called a switchcraft drone or switchback drone, something like that.
It's remarkable what they're doing with them.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Anyway, does anybody have anything else they want to share before we say goodbye to those people that are out there on social media land? Ken Porter, you always have some things to say. Is there anything you'd like to share?
I was just doing manual labor, working in the warehouse today, trying to get everything prepped to go out the door for all the Easter stuff and things that leave next week.
When is Easter?
Sunday the 17th.
Next weekend.
Passover is day after tomorrow, Jan.
Well, I'm going to be passed over on that one. I have to say. Oh, they have a holiday here called Soljan, and that's the best I could pronounce it here in Thailand. And basically, it's the festival of water. And so, yesterday I was on the street, and all these people that own stores are in the street with buckets of water and hoses, and wherever you drive, they're just shooting you with water. It's crazy. I've never experienced anything like that. It's like, if it was anywhere else in the world, I would be freaked out that they're shooting acid at me or something like that. But here they actually just shoot water at you.
Celebrating the fact that water is the basis of life or something like that? What are they celebrating?
They're celebrating that the practical joke of prankstering you with water, I guess.
Oh, really?
I have no
Okay.
idea if it's anything else other than that. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it has something to do with the spiritualness of Buddha and the monks somehow. Somebody could look it up. I never took the time to do it, except I did get wet yesterday quite a few times. So that's just the interesting thought. The other thing is, Bruce, you were talking about food at restaurants and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, man, the food here in a restaurant is so inexpensive. If there was only a way I could get it into the United States from here, I would be rich. I tell you, richer than my wildest imagination. But you can't do it.
Catering by Jan.
Yeah, catering by Jan, Thai food, and it's delicious.
Flown
That's
in
right.
daily.
Here
Flown
is
in daily.
delicious.
Last Tuesday's Thai food.
Yeah. By the time I get it there,
Yeah.
so an interesting aside right now. So I had 2 packages shipped to me via FedEx. All right, Fiat, and they left on March 21st, and to this date, I still have not gotten them. They're stuck in customs with FedEx, and I'm having the hardest time getting them released to me. Now, there's another company called Ship and Shop, which is a Thai company, which I bought some stuff. I bought it 2 weeks ago, and it's already arrived at my door, and I'm using them right now. And what I heard is that FedEx is having a hard time here in Thailand or other countries with their customs department, because they're a big corporation and they want to do it right. And the governments around the world want money from FedEx, which FedEx won't give them. And so the governments are holding their packages back in customs. I don't know how true that is, but it seems like it really seems to be affecting me. And what I found is, I don't know, I'd really like to hear your opinion on this, but no matter who I call right now, whether it's a bank or my insurance company right now, I had to call Humana, which is my pharmacy company, which is owned by Walmart. And yesterday I had to call FedEx. And every company that I call, when I dial their numbers, I am talking to someone outside the United States, either Guatemala, Thailand, wherever it is. There's no more customer service in the United States.
Philippines
Is
does
anybody
well.
else experiencing that?
True for a high percentage of companies. That's true. However, some companies consistently have, U.S.-based customer service representatives. But let me ask you this: what's in the packages that you were supposed to be receiving from FedEx? Just documents?
No, supplements, some prescription medicine, and pickleballs.
Interesting. So it's not equipment or something of high value.
No, as a matter of fact, what they're saying to me in customs here is that why would anybody spend $80 to $200 to ship something that's only worth $15? And that's what FedEx US, FedEx Thailand is telling me, that their problem is with customs is they feel that it's undervalued. So they wanted to see an actual invoice, which I've sent them now numerous times, but because it doesn't say invoice on it, it just says this is not a bill, from Humana. It's 14 pages of documentation of what's in the package. It's crazy. It's crazy. But what I'm finding right now is customer service in the United States has really gotten to be to the point where it's just no longer high quality whatsoever, and it's just frustrating as hell when you call.
Yeah, I wonder if I'm a CEO of a company that's a U.S. based company, do I make that decision to put our customer service people overseas? Because every time I get a chance, when I get a survey about how was the customer service, and the customer service reps were U.S. based Americans, I make a point of congratulating them for having U.S. based customer service representatives, and I say please keep it that way. Then they say down the bottom of the survey usually, how can we continue to do a good job or something like that. I say keep those service agents to be U.S. based. Don't put them overseas. And then when they are overseas based and they don't understand what I'm saying, or I don't understand what they're saying, I give them hell on those surveys, because I can't stand that when there's a language barrier with a company that's, that I'm trying to do business with because I have their products. It's really frustrating.
Drives me crazy too.
So
Yeah.
I called.
If you call
AT&T.
I'm sure if you call Electrosonics, you get a U.S. based person, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There you go, because that's U.S. all the way.
Absolutely.
I called AT&T to talk about my bill because it was something on my bill that wasn't supposed to be there, and it was all okay, and they fixed it, and it wasn't a problem. But they were in the Philippines because I usually ask them when they call where they are.
Yeah, where's your call center? Yeah,
where who am I talking? Where are you? And they're like, some people are Florida and some people are Alabama, and
asked
a lot of them are in the
FedEx
Philippines.
I asked this FedEx person, where are you located? She said, we can't give out that information. I said, I'm not asking for your specific address. I just want to know what country you're coming from. And she said, well, I can't answer that. And her accent was so thick.
Right.
That tells me right there that they're trying to hide something.
That they're
So
hiding.
that is,
Yep.
yeah, that's bad. That's
Well,
I would not
also
do.
right
I would try
away,
not to do business with that company.
if it's offshores, if somebody says, "Hi, this is Bill, and I'm answering your questions,"
Right.
somebody.
My
with
name
a
is
thick
Bill. My
accent
name is
and
Bill.
have
Yeah,
this
that's so
very
great.
American
Bill.
name.
Well, what I find is this, is that as far as customer service goes, the Philippines, if you get somebody in the Philippines, they actually understand what you're saying because basically English is their first language, because of all our American activity. We had our largest naval base, our largest Air Force base in the Philippines, and our culture. And when I was in the Philippines, basically you go into a supermarket, it's like going into a supermarket in the United States, with the exception of in between General Mills and Post, there's like a little thin sliver of some native made in the Philippines cereal. But other than that, but when you get somebody from India on the phone, what I have found is that they speak the language, they just don't understand the language. I just don't get it, It's
Well,
like,
there's a lot lost in translation when you speak anything other than dictionary English. You know what I mean? Sort of. In other words, if you speak properly with full sentences and proper grammar, they may understand it a lot better than if you speak in, I went down the store and I got this thing and maybe I don't know, and all these asides that you make. That just confuses the issue. Don't you agree?
Our verbal crutches, yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
But I don't know if you guys experience it, but it seems like if you get somebody from India and you could tell their accent, you could immediately tell their accent. It's like they hear what you're saying, they just don't understand what you're saying. And they speak English, but they don't understand for whatever reason.
You can repeat this. One of my pet peeves, okay, hear me out. Sorry. Here's one of my pet peeves. I'm going to get on a soapbox for a second. One of my pet peeves is when I get those customer service people, and my name is Ken Newman, right? So they say to me, Mr. Ken. And but that just bugs the what out of me. It just really bugs me because that tells me they don't understand American culture. In America, we call you Mr. Newman. In some cultures you are called Mr. Ken, but not in America. And I want to talk to somebody that's in tune with American culture. If I'm talking about my bill, you know what I mean? It's like
a bunch of grumpy old men here.
Well,
well, I am.
Hey, you kids, get off my lawn.
In Korea they use their last names, and that still is hard for me to get used to.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, if you use a last name in Korea, it's just like, how do you, everybody says Mr. Kim, and everybody turns to the left or the right, or Mr. Lee.
It's funny because my wife teaches a Korean language class and on Sundays, and I listen in to try and pick up some stuff, and it's really interesting to listen to her teach. These mid 20s and sometimes early 30s that are in her class online Zoom, because there's so many things that are so well, we would consider out of whack and backwards, but isn't in other languages,
The thing that's really out of whack is the English language, especially the American English language.
Well,
George Carlin was the master of uncovering those inconsistencies and crazinesses about our language. It's crazy.
I used to think Spanish was like kind of backwards, but I'm finding that we're really the backwards ones, because when you translate other languages, and I really learned this with my wife because she speaks fluent Korean, is it's just like Spanish, it's backwards to me, It's really interesting. I'm finding that we're really the backwards ones, which makes no sense to me because our language makes total sense to me,
Yeah, but our language only makes sense to us because we grew up with it.
Yes,
if you didn't grow up with it, I can't imagine how you learn this language. It's so convoluted,
Yeah, the other thing about other foreign languages is there's always gender-based. So like in la and los in Spanish, it's male or female. Is it a male gender word or is it a female gender word? In the U.S., I don't think we have that.
The other thing in Korean, I have found, between going there and being with my wife all the time, how you say things and what you say is based on, like, if the person you're talking to is older than you or younger than you're senior, there's all this stuff that we don't even think about,
Interesting. Well, interesting. Well, and I thought you were going to say that it's very pronunciation based. For example, who I was somewhere, and we said to the taxi driver, we want to go to El Centro or something, right? And he, El Centro, what? Well, I don't know what that is. And then if you pronounce it the right way, El Centro, or so put the accent on the other syllable. Oh, that's where you want to go. In other words, they don't even get it if you don't say it right, and there's big differences in pronunciation of what appears to be the same word.
Yeah. One of the things too is I'm sure in other countries too, but in Korean in particular, because, my wife is Korean, they don't have an R. There's many letters that they don't have. So it's really hard, to say for her sometimes to say some of these things and to totally, because sometimes there won't be a different version of that word that she can use, so it's incredibly interesting.
Language is a thing. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So is that why several, like 20 years ago when Hyundai started importing in the US and they had a commercial of trying to pronounce Hyundai and someone couldn't pronounce it right? Is that what it was? Because it's Korean?
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't really remember it, to be honest with you, but I've always known Hyundai as Hyundai, but you know what?
Rhymes with Sunday was what I was taught.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, on that note, I got to get going. But great seeing you
Well,
guys.
the interesting thing,
Great to chat.
The interesting thing is
See you later.
that in Thai there's like 46 letters, and it's all about the sounds. And if you mispronounce the sound, they don't understand the word at all. What you're saying, all they do is laugh at me, and so I
bet
get
they
a lot
do
of
laugh a
laughter. A lot of laughter. But listen, let's say goodbye to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever we're watching this.
Bye, Kenny.
And I want to say this is the 99th. Next week's the 100th. Invite your friends, invite your family. It'll be a fun time for all. And I want to thank you all for watching. Just remember, and listening, by the way, I just want to remind you all that whatever you heard today is an opinion. So make sure you do your own research. If you want to be part of the panel, just send me an email or DM me to SoundBroker at Gmail, or DM me at any of the social media platforms that you're watching on this. And remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you're in the room and you want to click, tag yourself, that's even better. So do that. And until next week, just remember, you make it happen. Thanks for listening and watching. And we will see you again for the 100th show next week. And with that, I am taking us off the air.